Hi everyone and welcome to Warhammer. We're your hosts, Jack
And Dan.
Today we're going to be talking about 40k's dumbest rules.
Yes. There's a lot we love about 40k, but these ones are stinkers.
These are definitely our top picks of the stinkers that we don't like playing or seeing or hearing about in our little chats.
And I think, it's we're not, as you know, the world's most negative haters or anything. It's just a bit of fun. I hope you enjoy it. But before we get into that, please remember to like, share and subscribe. You've been doing that a lot and it's really helping the channel. So thank you very much. Please keep it going. It's free, but it really helps us out.
It really does.
And we've got a couple of things, a couple of bits of admin before we start.
Crack on.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we were on a fantastic channel called Modelling for Advantage.
Certainly were.
They invited us on their live stream, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a good little experience.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and it's the video is available on YouTube. We'll put a link in the description, and go and give them a sub as well if you haven't already. It's a great channel. They look at a lot of Warhammer games. They were painting Necromunda. They were, but they also look at some historical tabletop stuff as well. Yeah. And they're very, very good presenters, Kaiser and James, and they're really good crack. So check it out. And the second one is a really big announcement for us, is that we are going to Warhammer World.
For the first time. I've never been before, so I'm really looking forward to Warhammer World.
Yeah, I've never been either. It's not something that used to appeal to us, but I'm really excited for this, I'll be honest. This is with a group called Rally Point Minds and Games. They hold an annual event at Warhammer World in aid of the charity Mind, so it raises funds for mental health. There's also a raffle as part of that to win a beautiful painted Tyranid army. So again, we're going to put links to both of those in the description. If you want to come and join us at Warhammer World, there'll be a link there so you can come along.
Come say hi.
Yeah.
I'll be super nervous. But I'll say hi.
And also make sure you buy some of those raffle tickets because it's a great raffle.
Army looked really good.
Yeah. Cool.
Very nice.
Right. That aside, let's get into dumbest rules.
Dumbest rules. So we're going to be covering a few rules that we either just dislike or just think are silly. So if there's any rules that you agree with, disagree with, or ones we've not mentioned before, pop it in the comments below, because I do like reading what ones people experience, because I feel like there's a lot of faction rules out there that I think we've never heard of or never seen before because they aren't used because
they're bad.
They're dumb.
It's a really good point. So let us know what in your experiences and your faction in particular. These are some of ours. Let's kick right off. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I'll start because I feel like this one we mention it quite a lot in our unit review videos if everyone watches. It comes up every time we see it and we always kind of grit with teeth whenever we see it. But fly.
Yes, the fly keyword, my God.
What they didn't need to change it. It was beautiful. It was perfect in 9th edition. It did exactly what you wanted, and they've changed it for the worst. And I just think it's crap.
So run us back through for those that are new players. In 9th, how did it work?
9th, beautiful. 9th edition. So it's a book, but I'll use it as an example. So you are these cards, these what's this? 10 Minister War Mission Pact. If you need to get over this book, and you need to get from like here to here, in 9th, you just measured how much you were from here.
Just a horizontal measurement,
Nice and easy. Kept it simple, kept it easy, yada, yada. But now in 10th, you need to measure up and around or up and over any obstacles. So for this one, you'd measure up to basically get over the top of this book.
Like a diagonal line?
Yep, diagonal line. Over.
Horizontal line.
And then back down.
Diagonal line.
Beautiful.
And
So that adds extra movement, which severely impacts any people that have the fly keyword.
So even if you have a vehicle that's got, say, fly 14, like some Eldar transports, right? If the building is 6 inches tall, you can't get up and over it with fly.
Exactly, because again, with the base sizes of the models, most terrain out there only have that little ledge for those like very small models can fit on. So if you have the fly keyword and you can't land fully with your base fully on the terrain, you cannot fly over it. You have to go around. So it's annoying. I think it shouldn't be there. I think they should go back to 9th when it works.
This might be a theme of some of these, but one of the things that bugs me about this is it is the opposite of the ethos of this edition. 10th edition is meant to be simplified, not simple.
Exactly.
They made fly more complex and worse.
Exactly. And the terrain doesn't benefit because, a lot of GW terrain that's out there that you see in some of the shops are kind of like it's like they sell them in boxes and such. So those ones that you put together in little magazines. They're the flat ones, which typically you can get on top of. But in most most the what's it, the UTC, ITC? No, the
UKTC and ITC, either of those, they'll tend to have much taller
much
terrain
taller,
features.
not as flat terrain, so you're unable to kind of get your guys on there.
Yeah, it's tall and thin. You're looking at like 1-2 inch wide platforms on each story for each floor.
Exactly. And then it's just the case of like, Necrons specifically, this is probably why we see this rule as much of an issue. Our Catan also got a movement nerf, that was the word, because they can now only move 6.
Yeah, 6 inches.
6 inches. So basically, to get up and over a terrain, that costs 2 turns.
Yeah.
And for like a 300-point model, you don't want to be spending 3 turns getting around the building.
No, it's just so bad. And I think you could argue that it's brought a new level of tactical nuance to how you move those bigger models like Catan or a Mortarion or something like that.
Yeah,
because you've got to think differently about how you position them and how you to avoid them being shot, and then how you move them out.
Yeah,
or you just play like something like the Hypercrit Legion in Necron, so you can just drop them in.
Teleport them around. Cost position it.
Well, you can't do that anymore.
Because they want to. I haven't even talked about that one. How dare they?
But generally speaking, also the other thing is. Fly's lost a lot of its benefits, but there are more guns in this edition with the anti-fly keyword.
That's true as well.
I don't think it really exists. If I remember correctly, I don't think it existed a lot in 9th.
No,
but that means that you are vulnerable to anti-fly damage, but you're not getting the full benefits of fly that you used to get. So that
it hurts.
Yeah,
it hurts to see. So there's not very many models out there that has fly that I'm aware of. Again, in the Necrons that I use in Imperial Knights and such. So if there's any units out there that you guys use that has the fly keyword, but you aren't restricted as much as what we are, let me know. That's interesting.
Yeah, one of the only ones that still really benefits from it that I've experienced is a Scourge unit in Drakari, because they've still got the infantry keyword.
Right.
So they can just fly through a building because they're infantry.
Of course, yeah.
So so they whatever, pretty much wherever they are, you're going to get the full benefit of their movement.
Yeah.
But unless you are infantry with fly, it doesn't work.
No.
So that's number one for obvious reasons. GW, make fly great again, please.
Please watch our videos and change the rules. But you want to tackle the next one forward?
Number 2 is the psychic phase, which if you're a new player, you'd be going, what phase?
What psychic? Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the psychic phase used to exist for many editions, and this was sacrificed in 10th in favour of streamlining the gameplay was their argument.
Yes.
So what this meant was if you have, you've got psychic models now in 10th edition, they will have psychic abilities or psychic shooting attacks, typically they are.
That's it.
But most of their abilities will also be used in the command phase or the shooting phase.
Yeah.
So in previous editions, you had a separate psychic phase after movement, before shooting, when the psychic abilities took place. And my issue with this partly is I just think Psychers have lost some flavour. Psychic has.
It definitely has. Because again, you look at 1,000 Suns, for example. We've got a friend who plays 1,000 Suns. And when he heard this, he was like, well, what's the point of 1,000 Suns now? Their gimmick was all the psychic abilities, all the, not jank, but flavour, I would say, to this specific faction. So when that was removed, it kind of hurt.
It was playing against him with Necrons in 9th edition was like yin and yang, because Necrons had no psychic phase.
No psychic phase. And nothing to prevent the psychic. And I think there was like a couple of enhancements here and there.
Yeah. But and then the 1,000 Sun psychic phase would go on for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. I literally remember just kind of sitting there. As soon as I was playing 1,000 Suns, I was playing Necrons. I moved up my guys. I shot, charged, whatever. When it was their turn, and their psychic turn came on, I was like, look, I'm going to sit. You just tell me what models I need to remove. Because I had no saves against psychic. It was all mortals at the time, and Necrons don't have a lot of saves against mortal wounds and such. So, it's a shame to go, I think.
It is. Well, fundamentally, has it streamlined the game because we've just moved those abilities into different phases, so that you're still using them and still rolling dice for them. But it's just not happening in its own dedicated phase.
I think it has, because it's also removed those kind of stratagems that you'd have to use in a specific phase, or maybe those rules that only happen in a certain phase kind of thing. So removing an entire phase arguably saves time on those. Like, they don't have to have as many cards, or they don't have to remember as much during that phase. But
I guess, because my example would be like, let's say a famous one from 1,000 Suns is Doombolt. Everybody hates Doombolt apart from 1,000 Suns players who love it. But Doombolt was a psychic attack.
Yes.
Doombolt still happens, and you still roll the dice, the same as you always did. You point at something and basically hurt it or delete it, but it just happens as a shooting attack instead of in the psychic phase.
Yeah.
But it's still the same amount of of time still surely takes place, doesn't it?
No, you're right. I think time-wise, yes, but I guess now as well, Necrons have a bit more saves against it, because if it's happening in the shooting phase, I can pop stratagems that affect in the shooting phase that wouldn't always happen in the psychic.
Yeah, if it's a shooting attack, then that's better for us. Yeah.
But I think for me, it's like the big flavor that's gone. Like, I liked the psychic phase because it was like, oh, they're a psychic army. That makes sense. You're gonna be spending more time in the psychic phase than you would the shooting phase.
Yeah.
Or Thousand Suns do have a few flavors in there, so I'll argue on that one. But yeah, for me, it's like, it's a shame to see it go. I don't think it's made as a big impact as what they think it was going to make to the time of the game.
Yeah, in terms of streamlining, I think it's slightly less admin. It's a better. But they could have streamlined the psychic phase and still kept it in. I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
and kept that flavor.
I see it, but I think there's just for them it was less admin for GW. They don't have to write as many cards out. They don't have to think of when they're designing the rules or designing the cards. They don't have to think, oh, how's this going to impact the psychic phase, yada yada. So maybe it was more of a change for them.
Because you used to, even with Catan powers, you used to have a handful of Catan powers, and you would select one for that Catan at the beginning of the game, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
and psychic powers were similar. Like they weren't. You chose what that unit could do.
Yes.
At the beginning of the game, gave it some psychic powers, whereas now they're locked in, like to the unit.
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess they've kind of, in that respect, they've kind of streamlined some of the admin side of it. I should give them credit for that. But yeah. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite change.
I think a lot of Thousand Suns players are like, stuck.
Yeah,
I hate this.
Yeah.
Which is a valid point.
And then one that we can all agree on.
Oh goodness, pivot. Why?
Yeah.
Why? What was the need for the change? It's just like I've just started Imperial Knights, and the armigers and such, and the warglaives I've got. Those guys are canny. They're around base.
Yeah,
super easy to move around. You've got to get around terrain, absolutely fine. But the big ones are just that long, stupid ass base.
The big old oval bases. Yeah,
and it sucks to move them, and like having to like awkwardly pick them up and then try and keep it at the angle in which you were moving it across the big terrain, because you've got to like move it up. Put up, like you move it up and around the terrain. I'll do it here. It's like move it up and around, and now I've accidentally moved it that way. It's like,
you've got to pay the pivot tax.
You've got to pay the pivot tax. You've got to make sure when you're moving it, it keeps the same
profile, same angle,
same angle.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a silly rule that they've applied, which just doesn't need to be there.
I feel this is another example of the tiny number of competitive players that are pushing for this rule change, that then impacts the massive amount of more casual players. Because I can see why in a competitive environment you would need it.
Sure, just to kind of like
just to stop jank and stuff. Yeah. But in a normal, for the rest of us, this is more admin.
It's just more admin. Yeah, stuff to remember.
And it takes longer to work out. People are confused. Oh, I don't know if you pick that. We've got a.
It's all right. Can't hear it.
Yeah,
absolutely fine. I can edit and post.
And as well as being confused, people are getting it wrong. So I played a game at the weekend where a guy was trying to move a Votan vehicle, and he was paying 2 inches tax every time he turned it. And I was like, no, mate, you don't have to do that. It's just once. But also thematically, right? Does it make sense for a tractor wheeled vehicle to pay a pivot tax because they have to physically move on the ground? Yeah,
sure, I guess.
But something that's like skimming about like a fly
or a hover.
Why does that? Yeah, why does that need to pay it?
It just doesn't need to be there. No. It's just overcome. You know what it reminds me of is, I don't know if you remember back in the day. We probably will, but back in the day with the old editions, where do you remember how like each vehicle had like a different profile, where like the front of the vehicle was like 14 toughness, sides were 9, and then even back then, like the weapons that you could only see from that angle to shoot, and like it almost feels like we're going back to that point where it's like I'm moving it and then I'm having to pivot it kind of thing, then pay it. It almost reminds me of that, something on the lines of that.
Yeah, it falls in the same sort of extra in-game admin category, doesn't it? Absolutely.
I just don't like it. I don't think it should be there. I think they should definitely undo it personally, because they released it, but only done it for one tournament, wasn't it, to see how it went first?
They we'll come on to that in a bit, because they actually ended up releasing 2 versions of the same with different pivot taxes you had to pay on the same day. Not? Yeah. So it's just we don't need it. It adds unnecessary complexity. I don't feel it solves anything that normal players couldn't. Two normal sensible players couldn't resolve between a pair of them. And for things like moving a tracked or wheeled vehicle, just measure from the back, and everybody's happy. And it's one of those areas that it felt like a problem that didn't need to be solved. Like how many times at tournament level was a tournament organizer having to get involved because somebody had moved their Land Raider and got an extra inch of movement because it hadn't measured from the back or something.
Where's the data on the back of it?
I just don't see it being a big problem.
Not at all. Not at all.
Good.
Well, that's pivot. That's pivot for you. What about the next one then? So this one is overhanging models. It's a bit of a strange rule, this one. Not so much that I'm like annoyed at it, but I just think it's a bit of a silly one. Well, not so much of a silly one, but like it is a bit of a dumb rule.
There's two kind of elements to this, and one of them I think is a smart rule, which is the moving between terrain features. So in the past, the OG rule was your model, if it couldn't physically fit between two terrain features, it couldn't move past them. Like it didn't matter if you were moving from A to B, if you couldn't fit in the gap between two terrain features in the middle there, you weren't allowed to go that way, which really restricted the bigger models and how they could be used in game. And what we ended up seeing, tournament terrain, for those that don't play tournaments, tournament terrain layouts are quite dense. Usually a lot more terrain on a board than you might see if you just in your casual Hammer games. And that meant that we weren't seeing a lot of these big centerpiece models like some of the Demon Primarchs or whatever, because they just couldn't move around.
Couldn't get around.
So in the last data slate, they changed that and said, if your base can fit in between those two room features, then you can move through them. You can't end your movement in the middle because you can't physically fit in there.
Correct.
But as long as your base can squeeze through, your model can move from A to B.
It's like they just didn't think about what models had bases and what ones didn't when they were doing this. So I think it's probably worth mentioning, for me anyways, I mean, personally, I don't mind the rule. I just think the written rule itself just sounds weird.
It's a bit of an odd one. I think that one's okay. The other half of Overhang to me is the odd one.
Is that one on the side?
This is on,
like the side
overhanging
of
the side of the board.
And I do find this one weird. I don't know if you want to explain it.
So I've been looking at this for a couple of days, and I'm dumb here because I still don't know what the answer is. I'm too dumb to work it out. But the way they updated it in the last balanced data slate in June, the wording says that if a model's like wings overhang the board, that's fine. So we're talking like a Demon Primarch or something like that. Mortarian's a great example. Hive Tyrant, brilliant, Something that's just like massive, like the base itself is like here, but then it's like wings is like sticking out with the side kind of thing. And that makes a lot of sense. But the way, so I'm thinking like, right, as a Necron player, should I get a Tesseract Vault? Because because that's a massive model, experiences all the deployment and movement issues we just talked about, particularly on tournament terrain setups. But the ruling, the wording of the ruling in the update says that all of a vehicle's hull must still be on the board. So I'm like, well, that means it can't overhang.
Because its hull, in theory, has been split into 4 parts.
Yes.
For the Tesseract Vault. Because it's just, but because it's a weird one, isn't it? Because like, who defines the hull? Like, there is
a definition of the hull, and it's basically the model. So that like a Night Scythe, we've just recently released a video on a unit review of the Night Scythe that's got that croissant shape, crescent shape. Like so that's the model overhangs the base quite significantly,
quite a bit.
But that is the hull, so that you could position the base on here like that. But if the model's overhanging, that's the hull is overhanging the board. It shouldn't, written. It's not allowed to do that.
And I think that's where people get confused with it, because like. Just the hull itself, just like with different, again with the organic ones, like the Tyranid ones and such. What class is the hull?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing for an organic model, if you like, their wings are allowed to overhang the board, so like but a vehicle, its hull isn't. So arms, wings, weapons. So what if you had like a Baneblade, for example, right? Because the Baneblade one can't move its turret. I was trying to think of a tank that could move its turret. So you'd place it like on the board edge, right? And then because you can shoot, because if your model's overhanging the base, you can shoot over the side, can't you, as well? Your model can't, but somebody else.
Can they?
So if the Tesseract Vault is hanging off the side of the board, I can't draw a line of sight from this bit hanging off the board to you,
right?
But you are allowed to draw a line of sight to it.
Correct me in the comments, because I thought the model can shoot over. Because what I was thinking was, you're a tank, And what you do, you just rotate your turret off the board. Yeah. So that's where you come in. That's where modeling for advantage comes in.
Shoot round the round the ruin.
It's like that film Wanted, where it curves the bullet round.
And I think already, like, you can see why we're kind of stuck in the mire here. If you're a tournament official or a rules lawyer that knows the answer here, please explain it to us, because I don't understand why something like Mortarion can have its wing off the board, but a Tesseract Vault can't have part of its hull off the board. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's again, did it need clarifying? Or was it an issue in the past? Or
I don't know.
They're literally just doing it to allow those bigger models to have some availability? Because I would argue it's still really hard to move those models around boards.
Yeah, and one of the main reasons is because they've broken fly. If you fix fly, a lot of these issues go away.
True.
A lot of this feels like them adding another layer of complexity onto the rules because the initial rule is bad. If you fix fly, a lot of this problem goes away.
Just goes away. Yeah, I would like that.
Because instead of Mortarion having to turn and shuffle in between two ruins, you could just go like this. Yeah, just fly through it.
Just go over.
So again, this is not an example of simplified, not simple. It's more complexity that we don't need. It's giving me a headache. Sort it out.
Correct us on why we're wrong below.
Yeah, I mean, somebody,
generally, I just want to know.
I put it into our group chat and they've got a couple of different answers.
Immediately.
But I'm still like, well, does it mean this or this? One of our friends, bless him, was actually watching the live stream and asked the TO on the chat.
He did. Do you remember what he said, actually?
Well, the TO said that it can overhang the board, and I was like, well, I know it can from deployment, or I think it can, but is it allowed to from movement or not?
Like moving up
and
forward.
Not shooter. So if you know the answer, please let me know. Put me out of my misery. Next one is another one that again, it's just adds more in-game admin that doesn't seem to be.
This is a weird one because like I remember when this first came out in our group, because we were at a tournament for it. And I was because obviously, with Necrons, they have the Catans, half incoming damage.
Yes.
So with MELTA, I was versing someone who fired the MELTAs at me, and they were like, right, that's D6 damage plus 4. Yeah. And I was like, great, roll your D6 plus the 4, whatever it is, I'll half it, and that's what damage it is. And they were saying, no, the damage characteristics gets halved, then the MELTA gets added on top. And I was like, well, no, hold on. I was like, the MELTA, to me, as written, from what I could see on my data card, I half all incoming damage, but MELTA, for whatever reason, in the way it gets calculated in the math, gets added at the very end of the sequence. And then I was like, nah, that just doesn't make sense. And like whatever, every other characteristics that doesn't happen.
Yeah, this is the only, that's why it sticks out like a sore thumb, because it's the only one, isn't it?
It's the only one. So I think I called it a TO or a judge over at the time, and the judge ruled in my favor because they were like, well, yeah, as it's written, it's this. And then the person was like giving a very good argument. And I think at the time I was just like, I just don't know. Like, to me, it's like, from my rules perspective, it halves all incoming damage. And then from their rules perspective, it done what they wanted, where it added on at the end.
There are other rules, like there's a few examples of this. So one of them is the Catan, and there's a couple of other units that have this, like the Avatar in Avatar of Cain in Eldar. He halves incoming damage, and then there is some abilities or strats where you are allowed to reduce the damage of one attack to 0.
Yes, correct, but that doesn't affect MELTA.
Now, that is another example of added complexity that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they've done this, because thematically it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, if I have a once per game ability where effectively a magical force shield encloses me, and you roll your D6 and do 6 damage, and I say my magic shield, once per game magic shield protects me, and you go, but it's MELTA 4, so you still take 4 damage.
Yeah.
Why does a MELTA get through my magic shield?
It almost feels like a gotcha moment where it's like, oh, I'm going to roll damage. Oh, I got a 6. And they're like, ha ha ha. It goes to 0. And I'm like, well, double ha ha. He has 4 damage.
Yes.
Well, I mean, some
Uno reverso.
Yeah, exactly. Well, some of the MELTA ones in the Imperial Knights have like MELTA 6.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's D6 plus 6. It's called down. It's like, what? It's like, that blows my mind. So
it's thematically and from a game management perspective, complexity, it doesn't make sense to me in either of those cases to me.
No.
I think the answer is to
just changing the sequence, right?
The answer is that if you halve all damage, that should include MELTA. If you reduce all damage to 0 for a once per game ability, that should include MELTA.
Yeah.
That will make MELTA less effective, but then we need to address other ways of making MELTA to balance that out. Either whether that's a points cut for MELTA keyword, or you add more damage on so that when it does hit you, it does hurt more.
Yeah. it's just a rule that, again, it seems to be overlooked per se, because when I've been playing my knights, I definitely forget that my MELTA not so much gets added on, but also doesn't get affected by the half income damage or reduced to 0. I just think it's just silly. Like, it seems like the person who wrote this rule didn't consult anyone else in their rules.
What we want, if we're going to have simplified, not simple, and streamlined rules, is not these but moments where there's one exception to the rule. It should be a universal rule.
Yeah. Just again, for simplicity wise, I agree. But for now, I won't agree because I'm playing Imperial Knights, so that rule should stay the same.
I mean, in terms of tournament play, if you use MELTA effectively, it means you can, whatever happens, you can get chip damage against stuff, or in the case of a big knight, you might still take it out because the MELTA factor is so big.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, I just don't think it works.
It's a bit, it's just a bit silly. Or there's like, if you're bringing a weapon that has MELTA, probably worth favoriting this rule. So when you say to the person, the damage happens afterwards, they're immediately going to be like, no, don't. So maybe just bookmark it, say like, no, look, it's here. Please, like, give it a
print it, get it stuck on a t-shirt.
I want that on a t-shirt. Actually, the MELTA rule. If anyone questions, it's like, no, it's right there.
You know what would happen though is the day you got your t-shirt delivered, GW would change the rules.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that would be fun.
Speaking of changing rules, there's one more that we'd like to see changed.
This one hurt. Yeah. This one hurt me.
So this was again an update that they did in the last balanced data slate, isn't it?
Big one.
So do you want to run us through it?
Oh, I can, because it hurts.
Can you do it without crying?
I don't know if I can. But so it's the rule that basically changes any model or any unit that has OC 0 are unable to obviously hold objectives, which makes sense. Yeah. But also that kind of stops them from doing a lot of actions.
Yeah, since the update, they're no longer allowed to do actions.
Why? Yeah. This is like, I don't know if anyone's out there, but I'm a massive fan of the Necron Scarabs. I used to run, back in 9th, you could run a squad of 9, not 6, 9, and then 3 of them, and it was beautiful. I used to do it all the time, max out the squad. Yes. It was just funny to have like 24 wounds run up the board, and then they could do actions, they could hold objectives, and it was a nice time. And then, there's people who have like the Nurglings and such out there that look like class models. Yeah. But now that's 0 OC, it's like, for me, it's like this cascade of issues, because it's like, okay, there's physically no point in bringing Scarabs. The only reason why you'd bring them is to maybe zone out your backfield. Yes. But you could afford other units that can do better things. So you may as well just scrap the Scarabs. And what that's also done for Necron specifically is that they used to have the Necron spider, the Canoptic spider, that's the one. So that unit basically can like bring back a Necron Scarab. Yes. But since you're not bringing Scarabs,
you're not bringing spiders.
You're not bringing the spiders. And it's like, it's not going to affect. And it's like,
yeah.
It just didn't need to be.
And I think I can kind of see, because there was
get out. I'm not telling you that.
Again, it's a tournament play issue. So there was 2 factions where this was causing problems at tournaments. One was, you touched on already, is Chaos Demons with Nurglings, and the other one was Tyranids with Ripper Swarms, because you had a unit that could shoot Ripper Swarms and drop them into your back lines.
Was it the demons, or was it Death Guard?
It was demons with or death. Well, you could take them as allies with Nurglings with allies.
Can you? Right, sick.
But they're in Nurglings are a demon unit as far as I'm aware.
Right, got you.
And but you could deep strike your Nurglings into somebody's back lines, and you could do things like deploy teleport homo, which is now called establish locus. Yeah,
that's it.
And similarly with your Ripper Swarms, you fire them in there, they can do an action in your opponent's deployment zone. They're going to score you easy. It was very easy points.
Yeah, that was from the Biovore, wasn't it? For the
yes, that's right. Yeah,
it was the Spore Mind.
Sorry, not Ripper Swarms. It's Spore Minds.
Yeah,
yes,
Spore Mind went over. I dropped it in, because the Ripper Swarms are also the same thing. They were just like, again, cool ones to bring in from the sides. But the Biovore, again, good knock-on effects. So the Spore Mine is 0 OC. Yeah. So now there's no point in bringing the Biovore.
Very little.
That shoots it across, because it can't do any actions. Yeah. So it's like, well, it kind of sucks now. So I'm not bringing either of them.
Yeah, and I think I can see why it would be in the right hands. It would make it difficult to stop your opponent scoring points if they took a fixed objective.
Yeah.
But there are other factions that can do that very easily, like Necrons.
Yeah.
You know, if you play Hypercrypt Necrons, they can drop in, they can cosmic precision units into your back line.
Yeah.
And score established locus and behind enemy lines every turn reliably. So it doesn't feel fair on those other factions and those other units. As you say, I would rather that they'd still allowed them to score secondaries, but just increase their points a little bit if that was a problem.
That's it. Yeah, just increase the points just because I love bringing them.
Yeah,
I want to bring them. I've got a full box of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably I'm not going to bring them.
I've got 20. Yeah, I'm going to say I've got 27 bases of scarabs, all painted and based.
Yep.
And then they're never seeing the light of day.
Never going to see the light of day until 11th comes out in the next 2 weeks.
So yeah, that one I think. Again, if you can see a reason why you think this is a good rule, let us know that as well. Yeah,
because there's lots of unit factions out there that probably might use them for something else. For my limited knowledge on the Necrons in Pure Guard and such, there's just not a good use for them out there right now. No. I think they're the main rules that we kind of wanted to cover. I think we're going to talk about briefly just a couple of factions that we're aware of that have some
there's some
silly rules,
some faction rules that don't really make the grade, and then this is just again there's a couple here that we've experienced directly, but if you have other ones that you want to tell us about, let us know,
because there's loads of them out there. I'll start with the Tyranid one because this one hits me more.
You hate this one, don't you?
I hate this one. So when I was building my Tyranids, I was like, I just want big units. I want big monsters, big units.
Yeah.
I just want to just have this not this endless one, but this big guy,
big thematic stompers. Yeah,
something that looks good on the table.
Yeah,
and obviously I knew about the Crusher Stampede in the 9th edition, so I was like, well, that was really good. I heard that was really good for a long time. I was like,
it was good. They brought out a codex supplement. Yeah,
trash.
Yeah, and it wasn't as good, I don't think, but it was for most of the 9th. Crusher Stampede was a really fun way to play Tyranids, and it was quite good.
It was, but in this one, the detachment rule that they've got just doesn't really make too much sense. So one of the Crusher Stampede detachment for 10th edition basically says if you are below starting strength, you add 1 to the hit roll.
Yes,
that's fine. Cool. Bit of a plus.
You've angered that big bug. It's gonna
come at you.
Yeah.
But the second part of it just doesn't. It's just not what you really want. So you add 1 to the wound roll if you're below half strength.
Right.
If you're below half strength of a guy, again, think of 2 Carnifexes, for example. You've got 2 Carnifexes. If you're below half strength, you've got to lose 1 entire Carnifex, which is kind of few amount of points, like 100 odd points.
Yes.
So you lost 100 points, and then you're going to be gaining the benefit.
Yeah.
It's just a bit tough.
Yeah.
Now, pair that with Old One Eye. So you've got Old One Eye, which is one of the HQs.
Yes.
Tied with 2 Carnifexes, you're looking at about 300 to 400 points in one unit, right? Because of all the buffs that you're going to give.
Serious investment.
Big investment. So the unit is now free. Free units. If you lose one of them, you are no longer below half. You're not below half.
There's 3 models. If you lose one, you've still got 2. You're not below half. So your detachment rule doesn't kick in.
Doesn't kick in.
Okay.
You lose the second Carnifex.
Yes.
You think I'm below half strength, but you're not. Because he's a
character.
He's a character. The character, that unit has now been destroyed. So the character is now by themselves on full wounds.
Right.
And is still not below half strength.
Right, okay.
So the idea of it just doesn't make too much sense.
Yeah.
And
you would like to see them change that, even if they tweaked it maybe to if the unit that this character is leading is destroyed, then you get the
something like that.
Rule,
just something different other than what it is. Because again, if you don't want to lose your Carnifex, you want your Carnifex up. So the +1 hit is nice, but the detachment rule itself just seems to be like, lose your guys, lose 1,000 points, lose 1,001 points on average, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah,
it's not what you want.
They didn't really think that one through, did they?
And again, this only impacts monsters. So in the Tyranid army, if you bring in Gorns or whatever, and they get below half, well, they're not going to gain the benefit of the detachment because it only affects big monsters. And it's like, super annoying.
Yeah, there's some work needed on that one.
Yeah, wasn't a fan of that one.
No.
The other one is Necrons. I don't know if you want to talk about this one or...
I can do, yeah. This is one that we've discussed some at length because neither of us plays this, but it's the Necron Obeisance Phalanx detachment. And the reason we don't play it is because the detachment rule is pretty weak. Yeah. It gives +1 to the wound roll when an Overlord, a Lich Guard, or Triarch unit makes an attack. Yeah. Which you think, right, fine, well, I'll just take all those units. Right. But there's not actually that many of them, is there?
There's not that many. And they're not that good anymore. So Lich Guard specifically, yes, they're okay because they get the invulnerable save with the shields, but realistically, they're not doing as much damage as like the Scorpec destroyers out there that are arguably cheaper.
The Lich Guard were incredible at the beginning of the edition.
No,
they gave
so
them a few nerfs, like points increases and some nerfs to their abilities.
Yeah,
and they're I don't like using this word, but it's accurate here. They're fairly mid now, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
yeah. That you're struggling to make a strong case to take. Yeah. Certainly to take 3 units of 10 of them, which would be a lot of points.
Exactly.
The Triarch Praetorians are just straight up not very good.
No,
weren't good in 9th, still not good in 10th.
Nah.
I've still got 10 on the sprue that I haven't bothered building.
Just don't bother.
Yeah,
you don't want to buy them. I'll sell them for Dan for some for you.
But that's you hit the nail on the head there. I think is if you're looking at units that can benefit from that detachment rule, how many points can you fit in your army? You can't get to 2,000, can you?
You can't. You'd be lucky to get up to 1,000 points.
Yeah,
of that detachment rule.
I think the only way you could do it is if the Lich Guard units didn't have an Overlord in them. But then why would you do that? Because you want an Overlord in there.
Do you have to have it in there to gain the ability?
Well, you'd want the Overlord. You don't need the Overlord in there to gain the ability because they've got the Lich Guard keyword.
True.
But they've got the Resorb and things which help keep the Lich Guard alive.
Exactly.
That's what they're meant. They're meant to lead those units.
Yeah.
So it's not great.
It's just a shame to see.
Yeah, it's another one needs a look at. I mean, we had a similar issue in terms of the Dark Eldar Drukhari in the Index. Their first detachment's called Real Space Raiders. Incredibly weak ass rule, and it was reflected in where they were in the meta. They were right, like pretty much second bottom. Just I think Votan were propping them up,
right?
But they were very bad. Yeah. But the reason was like their mechanic is pain token, so you spend a pain token at the start of a phase, and that can give a unit reroll advance roll or reroll a charge. But mainly it's used for rerolling hit rolls, in shooting or combat. So you start the game with 3, and the entire army rule was there's 3 different types of characters in a Drukhari list, and for each one of those types of characters that you brought, you got an extra pain token. That's it.
It's like, where's the flavour?
Yeah.
It's like, here's.
Well, there's no flavour, but it's also shit. You know, like in game, it didn't do very much.
See, it's just like there'll be loads of things that we've only got mentioned 3 armies out there, but there's like 20 or 22.
Yeah, there's a bunch of loads more factions. So
let us know which ones you hate as well, because you'll be playing an army sitting there being like, well, this attachment sucks. Let me know, because I want to absorb all of the knowledge.
Yes, and there's a couple of other things that you. There's a really controversial one here that will spark some discussion, I think. But before we get onto that one, talk about this other one first.
Go ahead. Which one is it?
Faction terrain. You've called it.
Oh, the faction terrain one. Sorry, yeah.
So you're talking about things like convergence of dominion. Here.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I just feel like it's one of the
what they call them is fortifications.
Fortifications, exactly. Yes. So I just feel like GW have like forgotten about fortifications in 10th, because they don't. I mean, Necrons primarily, so I'm heavy hand on this one. They just don't do anything.
No,
they can't move. You can't deploy them up the board.
No.
So the best they can do is zone out, and it's not really that
It's
good.
really expensive.
It's really expensive.
Yeah, there's a lot cheaper ways to zone out. Yeah. When it was really cheap I think, was it the back end of the last edition, or maybe it was earlier on in 10th, but then there was a value to take it.
It was, yeah.
Somebody gave me, I mean, the Hobby Vices do a Secret Santa across the world for Warhammer called Ho Ho Hobby Vices, and the person that got me a secret sent me this box of Convergence of Dominion. I was really excited because I love it, and I haven't got it. So thank you. It was a great present, but it's still in the box because I've got other things. You know, your painting priority is always going to be things you can use in game, and I can't. As much as I want to paint this, I'm not going to use it.
I painted mine. I think I got mine to a pretty
yours looks standard.
Yeah, and then they were like, "Oh, this is trash now." I'm like, "It happens every time. I paint something I want to use it, and it's so bad." So I mean, for us, they give off like a 6 up feeling paint if you're within like 6 inches, but since you can only deploy them in your deployment, you're gonna be wanting to move up. Yeah, you've got to move up. So keeping your units around it just doesn't really make much sense to me. So again, it's just fortifications needs to be sorted out, I think.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be something to look at that, or they just need
a revamp, make them good.
Yeah, they were very clearly just not looked at in this edition when they wrote the rules.
No, really weren't.
This is interesting. Your thoughts on the reroll stratagem, CP reroll?
Mm-hmm. I think, again, for simplicity wise, I think the reroll should affect everything. Every dice roll that you roll. Why can't you just re-roll it to make it simple? I always get thrown off whenever I'm just like, I need to make this roll. I roll it, it goes trash. I'll re-roll it. And it's like, oh, you can't do that. And I always forget the list. I've got the list here for you. So the only rolls that you can re-roll are the advanced rolls, charge rolls, desperate breakout tests, hazardous tests, hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, saving throw, and, didn't know this one, number of attacks made roll.
Yes.
Didn't realise. I always forget about that one.
Yeah, I did know that, but I just tend not to use it because you're going to roll a 2 into a 1 or a 1 into a 1, aren't you?
That is fair.
It's like when you've got something like a Doomsday Arc.
Yes.
And you want to, like, you need to get those hits off. And you roll a 1, you're like, I'll spend the CP. Inevitably, it's going to be a 1 or a 2.
100%. Always.
But
it's the way. But
that's why I think that's why it's not that we've forgotten that you can use it. It's like you've shut yourself off from that trauma, so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm in a healing phase. Yeah. But yes, I think just for simplicity wise, I think for me, just making that's just 1 CP. Any rule can be re-rolled.
I like that a lot. I think there should be some, and I'm even saying this as a Dark Eldar player, but there should be some examples, some exemptions, sorry. So an Archon is a character model in Dark Eldar army, and they have, I always forget the name of it, but they basically have a 2-up invulnerable save. Ooh. But you have to slow roll it because once you roll a 1, it's switched off. So it's gone,
and that's baked into their
it's just baked into their data card,
because obviously that will change.
So the ability to be able to re-roll that to keep him alive, because the likelihood is you're not, that's and it says on the card, you can't re-roll that, but they should keep some of those exemptions for real jank like that.
Yeah,
but everything else, I fully agree. I think it would just from an admin perspective, everyone would know what you can and can't do because you can do almost everything.
Yeah.
So that would be streamlined and simplified, not simple. Yeah.
It's an interesting one. People might be out there might think of other rules. So again, let me know. But for me, just do it all across the board.
Yeah.
I think that you had a couple of conflicting rules that you wanted to
talk
about as well.
This is something else that they've got a lot better at this, in fairness, I think, haven't they? But there are still some cases where they have conflicting rules. So.
We had one in the car as well. On the way over here.
Well, we were talking in the car about this. And should we do that one first? Then?
Yeah, do it first, Dan. Go ahead. Do you remember what it was?
So we were talking about Deep Strike and denying Deep Strike.
Yes.
So you're painting up a lovely model from the Agents of Imperium Codex.
Yes, a Navigator.
Yeah.
So that guy has an ability to basically zone out within 12 inches, so you can't deep strike within 12.
Right, nice.
So flat, you can't do 9. This guy, has an ability on his card that pushes that to 9. Yeah. But we were talking about another stratagem.
My first question was like, well, what about Cosmic Precision?
Exactly, because Cosmic Precision allows you to deep strike within 3.
Just outside of 3, yeah.
And it's like, right, well, which one takes priority?
Yeah.
And, well, I'll be honest, I've not looked it up. I don't know where I would start searching to see which one takes priority over the other.
Yeah, and again, this is anybody that probably is a regular tournament player, that small percentage of the player base, or is a TO or whatever, or just absolutely loves being a rules lawyer. You people will know, but most of us don't know the answer to that.
I feel like we need a TO.
Yeah.
Someone to sense check us.
Yeah.
But yeah, someone just let me know.
Yes. My gut feeling is that the deny probably overrules the no overrules the yes, I think.
Yeah, we did think about that. It's like, oh, well, look, it's like, just in theory, like, I've got stuff that does this, but then a denies it all. Like, it just takes priority.
But, and again, I'm not sure. I don't know, because thematically, like, Cosmic Precision and even thematically, and also how it's used in game, the whole idea is that enables you to get around those rules to bring something in closer than it would normally be allowed.
Yeah.
And so whether it's normally allowed within 9 or outside of 9 or outside of 12, should that make any difference? I just don't know. It's a difficult one.
Not too sure.
But yeah, they should remove those grey areas, and if you know the answer, let us know.
Please.
And then the other one was, as we mentioned, pivot. So GW, on the day it released the data slate, also released core rules commentary, which has the pivot rules in it, and tells you what the pivot tax is, how many inches you lose off your movement for pivoting.
Yes.
So what's called a pivot value. It sounds straightforward, right?
Does.
Okay. As obviously it adds more complexity, as we talked about, but there's one set of rules. Well, there wasn't, because at the same time they released a second document, the Pariah Nexus Mission Deck Tournament Companion, which had a different set of pivot values in it. And that's just
just like, where's the easiness? Like, there's so many more things to remember. Why confuse it more?
But also, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because unless you decided I'm not buying the Prime Nexus mission deck, I'm just going to stick to Leviathan or whichever way you play. Then that rules commentary pivot rule would apply to you. But for everybody else in the player base, which is I would guess 90% plus of us that were playing prior Nexus, we would have to use the tournament companion rules. So why have to? Just doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make sense. No, doesn't need to.
That's my last whinge. You'll be glad to know. But I hope we've covered those in our usual balanced way. We're not. This is
not just slating them. No. It's more just a case of why is it like this? Like,
and these
it just doesn't make sense.
I think it's reasonable to say these don't ruin the game for us. Fly is the closest one to making me really grind my teeth. But that one does need fixing.
Because again, you look at the Fly keyword and you're like, well, technically for my models again, for specifically my Necron ones, I don't need them.
No,
because again, I can't get over, so I'm never going to try it. Whereas again, other models might have the movement to get over. So I think we've hopefully balanced it out.
Yeah, I think so. Again, thanks for staying with us until the end if you're still here. And as we've said, I'm sure you've got loads that we've missed off. So get in those comments, let us know, and we'll pick out some of the best ones, and maybe in the follow-up video later in the year. And in the meantime, thank you for watching, and we'll be back soon.
Thanks so much.